welcome everybody to the July meeting of the Southampton Village Planning Commission. We have just a few members around the table tonight, and we have, this is a transition period since we're going to have a new Board of Trustees that are going to be sworn in on the 6th, where everybody's invited to come to the Village Hall and meet the new trustees. So at this meeting tonight, I'd like to, first of all, I'd like to do a roll call. So I want to say, Pamela?
I'm here.
Okay. Eduardo obviously is not here. Bob Esse is not here. Ed Corrigan is not here. Laura Devine is not here. Michael? Present. And myself, Mark Schiffer. So we only have three. We do not have a quorum, but I don't expect that we will need to be voting on any matters tonight anyway. So what has happened since the last time that we had our meeting? At the last meeting, we had the presentation from BFJ, who are the consultants who were retained by the village to assist in the updating of the comprehensive plan. They have they got in touch with the town GIS. They got in touch with the Suffolk County GIS to get all the information. So they are on a fact-gathering phase right now, and very soon they're going to start the outreach program for the to be able to involve the public and as many people and residents as possible in the development of this new comprehensive plan. In doing so, we thought that it would be best that instead of that the outreach be done as part of the village website, as an extension of the village website, and as such, then we asked for proposals from BFJ to see, since they are also familiar with what's called the Civic Plus platform that we use. And we also got a proposal from somebody else who happens to also work for the town, who also uses the Civic Plus platform. So we are still reviewing those proposals, and we think this is the right way to do it, to integrate it with the website, with the village website. There's a local association, the Southampton Association, has generously offered possibly to participate. We are still waiting for the details on it, but they are offered to help financially for this Reach Out program. This is basically what has happened with the comprehensive plan. Unfortunately, tonight, BFJ could not be with us, but they said that next time they will be with us and they'll be able to make a presentation. I expect also, I reached out to the building inspector to also, for him to meet with his staff and possibly come up with a list of also revisions that he would like to see in the zoning code and as well as in the process. I've also reached out, since we are now going to focus, since the Planning Commission is going to be focusing on the comprehensive plan, I thought that, and we discussed it, that maybe the best trustee to be our liaison might be Roy Stevenson. Joe McLaughlin has been great as our liaison so far, but I think that here, Roy Stevenson, having this experience on the planning board for the last, I think, 15 years, he would be a great person to be the liaison between us and the Board of Trustees in connection with the comprehensive plan. There was also, in terms, so this is actually, I think, really basically the update on the comprehensive plan. I'd like to encourage everybody to send in their comments, even though we will do surveys for the public. But I would like ask all the members of the Planning Commission to come up, with all lists of everything that you can think of that think should be revised or should be reviewed and should be improved. As an update on the sewer committee, which is I had the pleasure to meet with Paul Travis and Veradian from the sewer task force, and we discussed the various possibilities and the possible acquisition of a site for the sewage treatment plant. So this is in the works, so there's more to come and more to learn about. And hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have some news about this and where it's going to go. Since the sewer is such an integral part of the comprehensive plan, and the availability of wastewater treatment and to be able to develop wet use within the Village Business District is such a critical element. So this is, that's really are my updates.
So with regards to the comp plan recommendations, should we just we'll send emails to you?
Yeah, well, we should send emails to everybody.
Okay, so we'll chat.
Right, chat. And I think that maybe between now and the next meeting, we should have a work session.
Okay.
And then speak to BFJ, and then have a plan of action on how to, because really the next step is they had here as part of their presentation last time, I think it was on page 9, they had a schedule of what they were going to, what they were going to propose, and the next step is really the public outreach program.
So we're going to want to have an opportunity to discuss internally our ideas, because they may conflict and/or we may need to introduce new concepts to one another.
Yes.
Okay. And that'll happen in the work session.
Exactly. But we also want to get a trustee's input on it and get the input for the various department heads to also, we'd like to get, I think it's very important that we try to build a consensus. It's very important that, all the ideas are considered, that all the ideas are discussed, reviewed.
Can we get the building inspector to perhaps attend one of our meetings so that we can speak to him firsthand, hear some of the code amendments that he's interested in, and/or perhaps some of his concerns?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I definitely invited him, and he said he will be doing this. He will be meeting with his staff and coming to our meeting. So I think it's very important. There are a lot of issues that are somewhat contentious, that people are for, people are against. So, but I think it's important that we respect everybody's opinion, we review it and consider everybody's opinion, and then make a decision at the end. I think it's, for example, one of them was the GFA, which we had been reduced from 10% to 12%, and whether it should go back to 12% for certain size lot or not. And I think like this that
affordable housing will be contentious.
Yeah, it's affordable housing,
especially for terminology, apparently.
Right. Yes, and right, and how should we go about it? Because really, the affordable housing is really a larger issue than just the village.
Absolutely.
Yes, and how can we coordinate more with the town? So I'm inviting, here we have Rob Coburn. Maybe you could speak maybe 3-4 minutes on the water.
Sure. Do you want me to sit anywhere in particular?
Yeah, maybe Kat.
At the podium?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, sure.
Near the table, you have one here.
Okay. Should I just sit here, pull up the chair? Okay. So I know, Mark, you'd put sort of update on Lake Agawam. I'll talk about Agawam, but also put it in the context of other things that the Environmental Committee is doing. The Clean Water Committee was recast as the Environmental Committee. Our primary focus continues to be on water quality for the time being. And in terms of Agawam, I know there was a small update in your last meeting, but To me, the important points are that the Board of Trustees, we presented to them various drafts starting about 1.5 years ago of a management plan for Lake Agawam. It was done in coordination with the DEC in their study of harmful algae blooms, and based on that, it was in fact incorporated into our proposal was incorporated into the DEC plan as an exhibit. And out of that came a management plan, then a final management plan, which the Board of Trustees adopted last summer. It's really a menu of steps to take over various periods of time based on some conditions, additional information, and on budget capabilities, but with some clear technical priorities in it as well. And some of the steps recommended are, I'll call them cosmetic or reactive, and some of them are prophylactic, and some of them are permanently prophylactic. The more expensive ones are the ones that are permanently prophylactic. So consistent with that plan, 2 things in particular have happened this spring and summer, early summer. One was the deployment of ultrasonic buoys. These are the solar panel objects you see floating around the lake. They emit ultrasonic waves, and they disrupt the reproductive and regenerative cycle of harmful algae blooms. So they don't actually change the water chemistry, and they don't prevent algae from being created, but they kill algae during their mature life cycle. And then the other thing that's happened is an application of hydrogen peroxide. Does really the same thing, kills the algae during its mature life cycle. Those are both, they've shown some effectiveness, and there's some consistent improvement from a harmful algae bloom standpoint. But there have been 2 blooms this year. That's about half as many as there have been in the last few years to this point of the summer. So it's not curing the problem, but it's making the blooms less frequent and a little less peaked as they happen. Also with respect to Agawam, there's a dredging study that's being completed. The northern 40% of the lake was done a study was done by Nelson Pope Voorhees about 2 years ago now. And last fall, I believe, or it might have been the spring perhaps, I apologize, was the Board of Trustees approved the expansion of that study to the entire lake to determine what the feasibility of dredging is. It's confirming depths of water, depths of sediment, quality of sediment, that sort of thing.
And this is another engineering firm?
That's all. Nelson Pope is completing that study.
Nelson
They're
Pope.
basically completing for the whole lake.
I thought Rue Engineering.
Rue is doing something else.
Oh, Rue's
yeah. Yep. And then just last at Agawam, there are some bioswale opportunities that are being looked at closely at the southern end of the lake and also along Pond Lane. That's part of that's a recommendation from the management plan we submitted, but there's still a little additional study to go. Those are relatively inexpensive and relatively effective in terms of reducing surface runoff nitrates into the pond. Just to be clear, and it's a bit of a public forum, some of you may know this, but there are a lot of people who believe that dredging the pond will quote-unquote solve the problem. It won't. Dredging the pond is important because perhaps more than half of the available nitrates that can cause the harmful algae blooms are embedded in the sludge that fluxes through the water, and that's the biggest source of being able to sustain harmful algae blooms. So a permanent solution will require at some point removing much of that material, dredging.
Right.
The question is when to do it, because until we have some other steps in place, bad material is going to continue going into the lake, nitrates in particular. I'll get to that in just a moment, a little bit more on that. But that's sort of the status for Agawam.
I think that also you can mention that you were able to successfully get some grants.
Yeah.
And then it really was a great job that you did.
Well, and that's, we play, I would say, a supporting role in that. We're not the quarterback or the running back, to use a bad football analogy, but we may be an important lineman to make the play happen. But it's really leadership from Village Hall and the grants team. Gary Goleski is very involved in that as well. It's a good coordination. We've just been helping provide some information to support those grants and reminders about what the priorities are, so that as grant opportunities come up, we feel that, or the Board of Trustees can feel confident that they're putting the right projects forward into those grant opportunities. And we've had some success. I don't have a comprehensive list in front of me. I want to say we've won 3 grants in the last 18 months. We've got another 2, I think, that have been submitted, we feel good about, and there are another 2 that are being considered and worked on for the fall. And Some of them are smallish, $15,000, $20,000. A couple of them have been $90,000 to $100,000, and I think one of the ones we're looking at is considerably larger than that.
Okay, that's great.
One of the important things there is that the grant-making authorities, which really are the county and the state primarily, don't like to just sort of throw money here and there in a haphazard way. So the more we can provide what looks like a coordinated and strategic approach to the village, a comprehensive approach, seems like the better our applications are received, which is why we've created these management plans consistently. We did it for Agawam. We did one for Old Town and Wickapong Pond as well. That was adopted by the Board of Trustees in October. And there is a move afoot, I believe, to do a comprehensive water study. Again, I just learned about this recently, I believe Nelson Pope is being talked about, just to do an inventory of all of the surface waters and known conditions, and so that I think you can maybe think of it in analogy like a SECRA filing, where we can create a comprehensive snap of what we believe are the priorities and pinch points in water quality in the village.
But how would you address this, I don't want to call it an argument, but the point that the town trustees are really have jurisdiction on all those water bodies, whether it's Lake Agawam or Old Town Pond, and how come we are not asking them to get involved? How come we're not asking them to contribute also?
Yeah, well, you really have to ask the trustees on that. I would say, I know there's at least one, I believe, two bodies of water in the village where the town trustees actually don't have any jurisdiction, but most of them they do, you're correct, including Agawam. I think there has been coordination with Ann Welker in particular, a little bit with Ed Warner, and also with Janice Scherer to some extent. I think, I can't speak for the Board of Trustees. My sense is that they're keeping their powder dry. There's been an acknowledgement from the town that they've been partners in terms of information and some planning, and that when the need arises, they might need to be partners financially. I think we've been doing what we can on some of the smaller stuff. There's some bigger things that come along. I mentioned, dredging shouldn't happen until certain things happen, for instance, in Lake Agawam. If it's decided to try to move forward on dredging at some point, we will need to, before we do that, in my opinion, the opinion of people on the board as well, it's part of our plan, to install a permeable reactive barrier, which is a term of art, but it's basically something that will intercept groundwater flows into the lake that may be carrying more than half of the excess nitrates that are going in. It's basically the septic charge, primarily septic charge that's in the ground, a little bit of fertilizer charge that's in the ground from 100 years of use that will continue to flow into the lake. Even if everyone had an IA system tomorrow, you'll get this excess septic charge that will flow for decades. It's happened to a pond up in Connecticut, where the town years ago, decades ago, put in a septic sewer system for the entire town in Newtown, Connecticut. And their lake, Lake Pecatopac, has had harmful algae blooms every summer for the last restrict the chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides that go down. So it has to be voluntary, and that's an education program which the Conservancy is working on. We've done some work as well. We're a clearinghouse for some other organizations than just individuals who have contacted us. But that's important to understand, that the real problem here, you can point fingers in a lot of directions. The first place to start is to look in the mirror, because all of us have been working, the biggest single problem we've been using for the last 100 years, a septic technology with basic septic systems that is just really bad. Mark knows this professionally. And it's only, I think, people in the industry probably knew or suspected 40, 50 years ago that we were heading to a problem, and we've hit the problem. We've charged our groundwater and our soils with more nitrates than they should have. And they're dissolved and in the groundwater, and they do concentrate a little bit for certain reasons into open bodies of water, but so the problem is everywhere. It's why we recommend an integrated sort of strategic approach, and why we applaud this new Nelson Pope study to sort of do an engineer's version of a village-wide sort of master plan for water quality.
But coming back onto Michael's point, we should try to look for the low-hanging fruits.
Yep.
And try to resolve whatever we can do.
I know that I can't speak to what their exact programs are, but I know the Conservancy, through its members, many of whom live around the lake, and through some just calling programs and outreach, have tried to make available to all of the residents right around Agawam anyway, sort of some best practices. I'll say right here, we can't make any endorsements, but as a clearinghouse for information, there's a website called perfectearth.org. Or
Edwina Van Gaal.
Edwina Van Gaal. It's perfectearthproject.org, I believe. And she has some really good recommendations on there of how to talk to your landscaper if you use a professional landscaper, how to modify your own behavior if you do some of your own landscaping, and for contractors, sort of how to modify your programs and your techniques to be more sustainable, more environmentally friendly.
The only thing that does come to mind, and perhaps this isn't the appropriate forum, but while the state restricts the kind and how we regulate pesticides,
Yep.
we give landscapers permits to work here, correct?
Correct.
So we could require them to take something like the Edwina Van Gaal.
Absolutely. That's one of the focus on this permitting issue, as I understood it from about a year and a half ago, was enforcement of things like noise issues and leaf blower law. But one of the other things that having either our own licensing here or an agreement with the town to license landscape contractors
Right.
would be to require an educational requirement. The other thing that Edwina's website has, as well as the Cornell extension, I think it's CCE Suffolk maybe? Cornell Cooperative Extension Suffolk, on chemical applications.
Right,
which is-
so we
which is
just
too bad.
we avoid that by restricting where they apply it.
Yeah.
Well, this is something that you,
If I could, just a couple other quick things to mention. We have, you mentioned grants kindly. We continue to coordinate with Village Hall and Gary Gillespie at Public Works to maximize our grants and prioritize what we're trying to fund. We have recommended an update to Dr. Gobler, Chris Gobler's 2017 water quality study. He studied, I think, 5 bodies of water in the village with a real comprehensive assay on 3 bodies of water. We recommend that be updated for 2 reasons. We believe it's going to be required as part of the sewer application submission to have data within a couple of years of that submission. So we think it's going to be necessary for that standpoint. But it's always good to develop the time series. So that's a specific recommendation, and to the extent any of you talks to Board of Trustees, we'd love your help pushing the funding of that. We think it's about a $20,000 expense to update that study, roughly. We have created an environmental priorities report. We send an updated version of that to the Board of Trustees about every 3 to 6 months. And we know we're not dredging only to look 10 years from now, not having to do other things with additional sediments and water chemistry issues and think about dredging again. Doesn't make sense. Happy to answer any questions.
thank you very much for the presentation.
Okay.
It's really very enlightening.
Excellent.
Very comprehensive.
Yes.
No pun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another item, I mean, tonight we don't have, I was hoping to possibly get an update on the Arboretum and the garden that we have done, that has been done around the old parish, the Southampton Arts Center. And maybe at the next meeting we'll invite CMAC and other people from that have done a spectacular job at the Peter Marino new, I don't know if he calls it a museum or a center, but it's a great job, and the landscaping that they did around it is really, really, really very nice. So I encourage everybody to really go visit the Peter Marino Foundation museum and exhibits. It's really worth the trip. Any other item that we should talk about? No, I think that we were looking forward with the new administration to take over next week, and we look forward to working closely with them. And
We're going to have a lot on our plate soon with this comp plan,
yes,
so that'll be,
with the complaint.
should be our number 1 priority.
Right. So, any other comments? No? Any other comments? So then I'll move to maybe adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be August 5th, and then we'll coordinate everybody to have a work session either here at Town Hall or at an office. And then, so I want to thank everybody for
Thank you.
listening and participating, and we'll see you in August.